Thank you for taking the time to log on and attend this morning's webinar. My name is Emily Cornelius, and I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at Vigorate. And so just before I pass the webinar over to today's presenter, I just want to remind everyone that if at any time throughout the webinar you have any questions, please type them in using the GoToWebinar question box on the side of your screen, or you can tweet us at Vigorate Digital, and don't forget the hashtag #DemonstrateWebinar. So we'll begin answering the questions right at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions that don't get answered today, you can check for them on our Vigorate Digital LinkedIn page later today. Okay, so before we pass it over to Mike, I just want to briefly mention our next webinar in the Demonstrate series. It'll take place on August 21st at 11 a.m., and we will be welcoming Rick McLaughlin. Rick is an award-winning creative director and creative technologist. He has worked on both traditional and integrated marketing programs with a focus on technology and business strategic solutions for a wide range of clients and industries. So he will be joining us here in our next webinar to talk about brand creative, brand consistency, and the importance they play in our overall marketing initiatives. So for more information about this upcoming webinar, you can register for our Demonstrate webinar notifications on our website at vigoratedigital.com. Okay, so let's meet our speaker. Today's speaker is Michael Grieve. He is a senior partner and CEO here at Vigorate Digital Solutions. Mike has a very impressive past, including the roles of Vice President with RedToronto.com, as well as Executive Vice President with Truition. He has been with Vigorate for almost a decade now and brings intensity, brand and industry expertise, and a lively entrepreneurial spirit to the team. So without further ado, I will pass the webinar over to Mike, and he can take it from here.
Thanks very much, Emily. And today my topic is really about entrepreneurship. And for those that actually work within companies, intrapreneurship. So if you have an innovative idea or something along those lines that you want to drive inside your business, fantastic. Everybody is very busy, as I can imagine, and I'm very respectful of people's time. So we're going to try and keep this to about 10 to 12 minutes. And my objective today is really to suggest strongly that if you have an idea or if you see an opportunity, go for it. Don't delay or hesitate. In order to sort of illustrate that point, we've got a couple of stories of missed opportunities, things that were not gone for. And then afterwards, we're going to jump to a couple of opportunities that we did take. So the first one is my dad was an entrepreneur and a venture guy years ago, and one day, as we used to do, he came back and said, "Okay, let's play a board game." And in fact, I've invited another family over, and we're all going to play this game. So they put out the game, we all played it, and at the end of the game, he stood up and he said, "Okay, what's everybody think?" And everybody, without exception, said, "It's too hard." My dad went back to the office and he decided not to invest in that particular board game. That game was, of course, Trivial Pursuit. Now, when I was older and working as a sales guy, my dad and I were chatting, and he said, mining companies do royalty deals. So this is the second missed opportunity. Mining companies do royalty deals. So imagine a mining company going up to a farmer and saying, "Hey, we want to dig in your property, and if we find anything, we're going to pay you a royalty on anything that we make forever." It's wonderful and very common. My dad looked at me and he said, "Why is nobody doing that in the drug universe?" And so imagine giving a university researcher $500,000 and up front to help them do their research, and in return for that, the company would get maybe a 10 or a 15% royalty on anything that that researcher generated over the years. And I looked at him and I said, "I think that's just a fantastic idea." And he marched off and created a company called drugroyalty.com, and he raised a bit of money, and then he said to me, "Come on, join me, let's do it together." And I said no. Now, unfortunately, he passed away soon after, and he actually didn't make any money from that particular business. But if you go to drugroyalty.com right now, you'll see that it has $2 billion invested in either university researchers or drugs themselves. And it spawned a huge global industry. In the third missed opportunity, in 1999, this is right at that dot-com crazy bubble, the first one. I joined a company called eDeal.com, and we competed with eBay, the online auction guys. Obviously, we were a little late to the party. Not much, but we were a little late to the party. We had phenomenal technology. We had good clients, but we didn't really have any revenue to speak of at all. And I was a bit player. In other words, I had a chunk of shares, and I was on the leadership, but I wasn't one of the main cats in that one. And we were in San Francisco, and we were presenting to a bunch of clients. And the president got off the phone, and he looked at us, and he said, "We got no money. We're done." And none of us were worried at all because it was just this weird, crazy time. And I said, okay, I'll go and see if I can find some money. I had remembered that my brother knew a guy called Brad Nallmeyer, and he was the chairman at the time of a company called CIT. And he had just put together a $100 million fund for internet startups. So I gave him a call, and he actually picked up the phone, and I said, "We've got an online auction company." And he said, "That's fantastic. Come and see me." And those were the days. And we flew down to New Jersey. We met him. He said, "This is great." 2 weeks later, he sent 2 guys up to do due diligence on the company. And a month later, we had a term sheet. And again, remember, we had no revenues to speak of. We had a term sheet for $10 million for 20% of the company. And we said no. Those were interesting times. So that was the third opportunity missed. In terms of opportunities taken, I can remember about six odd years ago. It was a very cold February day. There was sleet hitting the windows. It was ugly outside in Toronto, and my partner, my current partner, Scott Curry, and I had just heard that the company we worked for, and he had a little chunk of that one. He had an equity position in it. The company we worked for had burned through $9 million in 18 months, and they had no money left. It was over. They had expanded around the world and so on. He had just had his second child and bought a new house, and I had just had my second child and bought a new house. So this was not particularly good news. And I remember Scott saying at that time of despair, really, we have something in little tiny little Toronto, Canada. It's not much, but it's kind of a cool little gig. And we could have walked away from it. And in fact, there were 3 of us at the time working together, and one of the gentlemen did go off and do something a little bit more conservative, and he's been very successful. Or we could work to separate our small part out. And so we ponied up some money, we rebranded, we took on the employees, and 6 years later, very recently, we were listed in Profit Magazine's fastest growing companies for 2013. The final, more positive story, and I think it's an excellent one for aspiring entrepreneurs. I was sitting with my partner, and I said, not that long ago actually, a few months ago, and I said, whatever happened to that company out west in the news, dot-com-y business? They're the 2 owners that were in their 50s back in early 2000 when we started doing dot-com stuff. And he said, yeah, I know exactly who you mean. They're still around. They're much smaller than they used to be. They did about $1 million a year, but they're still there. And I said, well, maybe we should call them. They must be in their mid-60s now. And he said, well, it's not a bad idea, but we really don't have any money to buy them out or do anything interesting like that. So I called them anyway. And a couple months later, they called back. And soon after that, we had agreed to something called an earn-out. No money was paid up front. The 2 gentlemen were bought out respectfully and openly over time, and they help with the transition. So it's a wonderful mechanism and a done deal. I kind of wanted to underline this particular opportunity taken because I believe that there are lots of business owners who are older, have good niche companies, and are kind of stuck right now. They can't find a buyer, and they have to keep working it and they'd much rather be out hitting golf balls. So I guess in summary, keep your eyes open and be brave enough to ask those older gentlemen out there with those niche businesses. So I hope you enjoyed a few of these war stories, both crazy opportunities not taken and some ones that have been taken. And remember to go for it, cautiously because money's involved, but nonetheless, go for it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was great. Okay, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Don't forget our next webinar in the Demonstrate series will take place on August 21st. And for more information about this upcoming webinar, you can register for our Demonstrate webinar notifications on our website at vigoratedigital.com. So thanks again and have a great day.